A few hours ago, the government of the United States has just briefed the President Donald Trump and new information about the alien hybrids.
Aliens exist and President Trump knows about it. That's according to Israel's former space security chief. In an interview with an Israeli newspaper, he said the aliens have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are.
Now, a few hours ago, there was a lot of briefing going on with President Donald Trump.
And they were in the Oval Office, 3 or 4 pilots. These are not people that make up stories. They said, all I know, sir, is there was a round object that was going 4 times faster than my F-22, which is a very fast plane. And it wasn't, it shouldn't have been. It was round, sir. They have seen, 4 or 5 guys I've interviewed, solid people, great pilots for the U.S. Air Force, etc. They've seen things that they cannot explain.
Talking about President Trump and how David Grush allegedly briefed him about Nordic beings and hybrids. He uses a very curious name to describe hybrids. And I would guess that if this is true in any way, that Grush briefed Trump on other races, probably, if that is the case. But
the aliens were just waiting for us to advance. Look at this stuff. Former alien space security chief says that extraterrestrial exist and Trump knows about it. And they've also been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand the kind of technology that these aliens possess, and in general, what space and spaceships are, says one of the whistleblowers. Now, this information is covered by NBC News. Now, I don't know how far we can actually trust the NBC News, and this is what happened, where Trump was briefed on the Nordic alien hybrids.
From the Galactic Federation of Aliens, and he says President Trump is aware of the existence of these aliens and had been on the verge of revealing their secrets, he claims, but was asked not to do so by the Federation in order to prevent what he calls mass hysteria.
And in this brief, one of the congressmen named Eric Burlison, he revealed a lot of information about what is supposedly known as an alien hybrid that seemed to be living among us, as far as what the government has been trying to reveal today.
That the Nordic people or the Nordic aliens are like a few hundred years more advanced than we are, but they're not super advanced. They're not like whatever is sending the Greys is extremely advanced, like thousands and thousands of years more advanced than us, because it's doing all the anti-gravity stuff, all the crazy, all this crazy stuff that's very highly advanced, and a lot of it is what he says with the Greys is psionic. So they basically don't have physical interfaces. They're using their mind, and that there's an interface that picks up thought, and then that and that's how they operate these vehicles, is out of psionic. But the Nordic people somewhat resemble humans, and they have been experimenting with crossbreeding with humans. And he says some of them, that there are aliens that are crossbreeds living in the world.
So we got a second time in less than a week, people talking about hybrids and Nordic beings. That's the first time this week, but we know that Representative Burleson and that UAP panel spoke about these races that are being reported and have been reported for years. And he mentioned Nordics, tall whites, mantids, and the Greys. Oh, and reptilians.
And I asked him, I go, okay, do they know that they're a crossbreed? Or do they, how would you know that they are a crossbreed? And he didn't have an answer for that. He didn't know if they knew what, but he said that the briefings he's had talked about them. And he said when Trump was briefed on this topic, because Trump finally had a briefing and he was in the middle of impeachment, he was in the middle of being impeached. So he's going through that. And then he had this existential briefing that just kind of rocked his worldview.
And these beings supposedly have been living on Earth from many thousands of years, and they've also been breeding with us humans. Now, I know it kind of sounds a lot like what we have already read in the Bible, because obviously the fallen angels, many thousand years ago, they seem to have come down on Earth, and they've been breeding with us humans. And they also gave birth to these species called as the giants or Nephilims, who are not exactly very tall in size, but at the same time, they're not really humans. They're half angelic humans. They're half fallen angel, half humans, something that God did not intend for these beings to be born. Now, according to the government of the United States, as far as what President Trump was briefed today, it seems like the hybrids, what they are mentioning, are the tall, white Nordic people.
Well, the retired general says the US and Israel have kept it from the public because, quotes, humanity isn't ready and the aliens don't want to reveal themselves until humanity can evolve, he says, and understand what space really is. Well, the good news is that
do we really know space now?
has been reached between the US government and the aliens. A contract to do experiments here. There's also, he says, a secret underground base on Mars where there are American and alien representatives.
And as far as what they've been claiming, it seems like the story is far more interesting than what I've expected.
Eisenhower, the Greater Treaty. I don't know if you're familiar with the Greater Treaty, and, Eisenhower, where the Greys were the aggressive aliens, and, they had negative motives, all this other stuff. And an article's written, Rob, if you can pull this up, by WAPO. I think this was written in February 20th, 1954. It says Ike and the Alien Ambassadors. That's the name of the article. There you go. So February 20th, 1954. Story comes out that Eisenhower, while he's on vacation, steps out. He says, no, I got to get away from this vacation here to have a meeting with the Greys, because apparently they wanted us to stop. There you go. The 50 years. Oh, that was written 50 years ago tomorrow. On February 20th, President Eisenhower interrupted his vacation in Palm Springs to make a secret trip to a nearby Air Force base to meet two extraterrestrial aliens, or maybe not. Maybe Ike was just going to the dentist. There's some dispute about this. Anyways, and they said, hey, we want you to stop pursuing with the nuclear weapons. Give it to us. In return, we'll give you some advanced technology.
Dwight D. Eisenhower met with extraterrestrials in 1954 and in 1955, and they told him to stop making nukes. Let me explain. In February of 1954, the 34th president of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower, was in the early stages of his new presidency. He was elected the year prior in 1953, and before that, he was a decorated military man and actually served as the supreme commander of the Allied Expeditionary Forces during World War II. He also achieved the 5-star rank of general in the Army. Now, I'm telling you all that to show you how this man wasn't dumb and he knew what he was doing. In February of 1954, Eisenhower went on vacation to Palm Springs, California for a couple weeks. But on the first Saturday of this trip, he wasn't seen at all. Like, at all. So for a full 24 hours, no one knew where the president of the US was, or so they say. Now, that's a big deal if you didn't know. Tabs are kept on the president at all times to make sure, they're okay, that they're doing okay, they're not dying or whatever. So for 24 hours, this man was missing to the public eye. And during that 24-hour period, he actually missed a public dinner that he was scheduled to be at, which is also a big thing for a president. They typically don't dodge that sort of public thing. Of course, with a missing president, the press started to ask, where's Dwight at? And the White House's answer was that he was seeing a dentist. But when pushed even further for his dental records, it was found that no appointment was made during the trip to Palm Springs. And after that dentist story fell through, the same night, several news outlets, including the Associated Press, made reports that Eisenhower actually died from a heart attack while at Palm Springs. And there's even a picture of him in a wheelchair and news headlines saying that he died. But just minutes after this was made public, they took it back, and instead they said, yeah, he had a heart attack, but he's fine, he's not dead. Insider reports claimed that the president was taken to Edwards Air Force Base on that Saturday, which is in the California desert, just a few hours from Palm Springs. Now, this is when the story gets crazy. When he arrived at the Air Force Base, several whistleblowers claimed that he met with, quote, Nordic extraterrestrials, which is a pretty interesting way to describe ETs. There's been some whistleblowers that have described what they look like to artists, and these are some of the renditions that have been made. Now, these Nordic ETs supposedly asked Eisenhower to stop all work on the USA's nuclear program and to never start it back up again. But of course, he refused the request. The crazy thing is that this interaction with Nordic ETs in 1954 isn't even the only interaction that Eisenhower had with ET life, because a year later in 1955, it said that the president met multiple times with different races of ETs. These races were not Nordic. These meetings took place at Holloman Air Force Base, which in and of itself has been a hotspot for UFO activity. And this base is in New Mexico, not far from the Roswell UFO crash site. According to a few more whistleblowers, this second meeting at Holloman's with the ETs was the first meeting with the Greys. Now, during this meeting, the whistleblowers on the case say that the Greys gave Eisenhower's administration extremely advanced technology as some kind of treaty. Now, in turn for this technology, the Earth would provide the aliens with some sort of minerals and pretty much just resources from the Earth we would give to them. And during this meeting, the public was told that the president was on another vacation, and that's why he wasn't being seen or attending events. People inside and outside of the Holloman AFB claimed that 3 UFOs touched down and landed at the base during the meeting. And once they did, the president supposedly toured one or multiple of the alien ships. Now, of course, all of this information is coming from whistleblowers, reports, and from people who were there at the time. So you may think some of it's embellished, but there's no way that it all is. And the years after meeting at Holloman's, there's been many UFO sightings and encounters near and around the area. And there's been one important person who says that all of it actually happened. And this person is the most credible witness on the case. Her name is Laura Eisenhower, and she is Dwight Eisenhower's great-granddaughter. Laura has kept her story straight for her entire life and claims to have interfamilial knowledge that confirms this meeting with ETs. So yeah, there was newspaper headlines, lies about Dwight's whereabouts, whistleblowers, eyewitness encounters, and his own great-granddaughter all claiming that on multiple occasions, Eisenhower and his administration met with extraterrestrial life.
How much of this do you think is a myth? But this is WAPO writing about this.
Right.
How much do they think there's credibility behind it?
The only credibility I can come up with is what I heard from his own bloodline, and that would be his great-granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower, who I've been in many lectures and meetings with and done conferences with and been on panel discussions with. And she says that this information is 100% accurate and that she was told not to come out with this information. But she did, and to speak publicly about it, which she did, and they ostracized her from the family, even taking away her inheritance money. And I believe that because she was financially struggling severely at that time. But I believe her wholeheartedly. And she had some other incredible stories to tell about the family as well that were pretty out there.
What were they?
Well, she said that they sent a handler to her years ago to talk about going to a breakaway civilization they had been creating on Mars.
There's also, he says, a secret underground base on Mars where there are American and alien representatives.
And she thought the guy was a love interest and really falling in love. And she found out through some method or whatever that he was actually just a handler. And tried to convince her to go with him to Mars. She said, no, I'm not going to go. They tried. They kind of fought over her trying to be there. And according to her, there were only specific bloodlines or specific people with particular interests and knowledge and so forth allowed to do this breakaway civilization. And she says that she decided not to go. But she said that they are creating a breakaway civilization on Mars. Now, the reason why I believe that is because, you know, a program that I created years ago called the United Family of Anomaly Hunters, we had been downloading images from NASA, the European Space Agency, the Indian Space Agency, China, Russia, all the publicly available images from all the space probe data and rovers. And we had been finding a lot of anomalies, tons and tons of anomalies. And in these anomalies, these are out-of-place objects, things that shouldn't be where they are. And one of the most anomalies appear on Mars, to be honest with you. And so that led me to believe that she could be telling the truth. Maybe there is something going on up there. Maybe there was something going on up there. We know Ray Brandenburg wrote a book about the soil on Mars. The REMS unit sent back data on the atmosphere and the soil, saying that there's xenon in the atmosphere, xenon in the soil, which means it wasn't any kind of xenon. It was weapons grade xenon. It was the byproduct of nuclear warfare. So something happened to Mars, and I think that there's a reconnaissance mission and maybe even a breakaway civilization there right now, and that the people that are traveling there in 2030 are just a front for what's really going on. There's something much deeper going on there, which is why probably it's a one-way trip. Every time you hear about these Mars trips, it's a one-way trip. They're not coming back.
The whistleblowers have been stating, apparently these extraterrestrial creatures, now for Christians, obviously we can call them as the fallen angels, but for people who haven't read the Bible, then you would obviously know them as aliens. These are the demons that we apparently call as aliens. Now what's interesting is that there is a documentary that's being done by History Channel where they actually gathered this one person who worked on the space research team, and he seems to be having some sort of a psychic ability. Now, as we have previously seen, that there were a lot of news that just came out stating that we can communicate with these beings, like the extraterrestrial beings, and they're just some sort of a light that just shows up anytime you try to communicate with them using just your energy and spiritual powers. And that's something, they've also done an experiment on. So let me just show you guys what this is all about.
Chris claims that afterward,
look at this stuff.
He formed a connection with the phenomenon. This experience gave Chris the ability to seemingly communicate.
You see that?
He has called them the Galactic Federation of Aliens.
Settlement based on one man, one vote. But, he says, there are conditions. These include stopping the execution of all captured prisoners of war, allowing Bureau to take negotiations, being arrested. In Australia, Mr. Kerry Packer's cricketers are still pleading the right of yesterday's High Court decision, which didn't ban on them playing in Test matches.
This is the voice of Allah, representative of the Ashtar Galactic Command, speaking to you. For many years you have seen us as lights in the stars. We speak to you now to send the same as we have done to your brothers and sisters all over this, your planet Earth. We come to warn you of the destiny of your race and your world so that you may communicate to your fellow beings the course you must take to avoid the disaster which threatens your world and the beings on other worlds around you. This is in order that you may share in the great awakening as the planet passes into the new age of Aquarius. The new age can be a time of great peace and evolution for your race, but only if your rulers are made aware of the evil forces that can overshadow their judgments. Be still now, and listen, for your chance may not come again.
Can you tell us a little bit about the international collaboration and whether or not you feel like the United States has a pathway to getting straight answers from other governments that are also looking into this or not, in fact?
Yeah, I speak a little bit of Japanese, and which has been helpful because the congressmen in Japan have been reaching out, and I've been on a couple of meetings with them. They're looking to create something similar to what the United States has, which is Arrow. So they're looking to create a program because they have a significant number of sightings in Japan as well, particularly over nuclear sites and over water, which is what we consistently see in the United States.
These hearings that are going on, obviously trying to get to the bottom of this. There are, of course, Jeremy Corbell, James Fox, George Knapp, others who are saying, there are so many whistleblowers who are ready to come to Washington. They've got these stories. They've worked in the government. They've worked on these classified programs. Where are we with all of that? Are we going to get some big answers soon, are you hoping?
I think we're just trying to make progress right now. We're trying to look. I have been frustrated in this experience. For example, one of the individuals that recently retired, the deputy director of Arrow, he was on a media circuit where he said that he he spoke with the Department of Defense and the individual that was managing the special access programs that he had access to, and was prepared to give that briefing to myself and other members of the disclosure task force, and they were denied the ability to give us that briefing by someone in leadership, whether he believed it was either the speaker or the chairman. But so we're trying to figure out what exactly happened. It's extremely frustrating when you're put into a position where you're supposed to be investigating something and you're getting blocked at every turn. So that's kind of where it is frustrating. That's why I'm doing everything I can to kind of to continue to push. And if there are whistleblowers, if anybody's watching this and you have something to say, please reach out, because we're trying to get information from any place that we can.